Hello, everybody. I am here today with a woman who is a complete inspiration to me. In fact, on my last podcast, darling, I talked about you. I used you as an example. And
Oh,
we have Shonagh Home with us today. Hello, Shana.
hello, my dear. What'd you say about me?
Well, I was talking about the question that I actually stumbled across was, what is the highest purpose for your life? And I was talking about people that I have observed that have found their highest purpose and have acted upon it. And so, for those of you who don't know Shana has apprenticed herself to the wisdom of the mushroom. And as a result of that, her life has completely shifted like 360 degrees, right, from what it was.
Mhm.
And I attribute that to the fact that you have found your true calling and you're walking the footsteps for that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely, definitely. I think at the end of the day, really, it is because what that did was it connected me to spirit so profoundly. And really, it sounds so cliche to say, but we are spirit in a vessel, a body vessel, and we're having this earthly experience. And sometimes it's a living hell, and sometimes it's amazing, or it's a little bit of everything. And but here we are. And my faith also, although I say faith, but I don't believe, like, you know what I mean? I'm long past belief. I know there's life after death. My father came to me after he died. And so, yeah. That was a whole other story. And yeah, this is a living mystery. And so I feel so close to the spirit world, I would say, especially these past couple of years. And it's like I see the evil playing out, and I realize, so they've got their God, whatever that is. But it's very real to those guys. And I don't know, just even that like has deepened my own knowing of, oh yes, this is very real. This is very real. And this is a dance, dark and light.
It really is, darling. And look, just so that people know why we're talking today, is that Shauna is about to start a fabulous new podcast. And one of the things that you're going to be talking about is the mushroom teachings that you have come across. But I also have a podcast, and I think one of the primary features of mine is that I talk about how we live in what I call a materialistic prison paradigm. And so what you're talking about now, the spirituality and being in touch with spirits, is something that's not available to people at all that live in this materialistic prison paradigm. So I find it fascinating that it's so real and it's so tangible for you. So tell us a little bit about how the mushroom got you to the spirit connection.
Well, I was connected as a child anyway because I had clear cognizant, I was a knower, and I had clairsentience, I was a feeler. So as a child, though, I didn't know that the knowing, I called it confirmations. Like I would know when something was going to happen, but I didn't know. Confirmation was the strongest word I could think of. So I called it confirmations, but I didn't share it with people because I just knew I wouldn't be taken seriously, but I knew stuff. And then I lived in a haunted house for 3 years
Oh,
in Connecticut. Yeah, and I never saw it. My mom did. She was Irish, so you know those Irish people. and uh, and so anyway, yeah, I felt it, and that freaked me out. And then when we moved, I remember just feeling, quote unquote, the new house, and be like, okay, it's good. This is cool. It's clean. It's clean. So little did I know, though, that those 3 years in that haunted house were kind of training. It was kind of training because you're getting used to feeling in a way that most people aren't doing because they're just in kind of the surface world and they're not kind of thinking in that way. So I always knew there were spirits. And then also as a child, I was very connected to the fairy. And I devoured Andrew Lang's series of fairy tales, which that's not Disney shite, it's like
Right.
beautiful old European. He was a folklorist and he just collected all these beautiful old tales. And he and his wife put these gorgeous books together. So oh God, I remember going to North York Public Library in Toronto and taking out the gold fairy book and the blue fairy book. And then also the images were really beautiful. They were almost like etchings, like old, just beautiful. I was really captivated by that. So by the time I came to the mushroom, which I never ever thought I would do, like if you told me you're going to be 48 years old and you're going to find your way to the mushroom and then you're going to do it every month, big doses for like, I would be like, that's impossible. It's just amazing, right? The arc of our life and the choreography, like who's the choreographer? How did that happen? And so, but I just kind of fell right in because the first experience was when the earth spoke to me. I didn't know what to expect, but I sure was not expecting that. And then I saw Pan. And then a few weeks later, I did a fire ceremony with a group of women, and one of them asked to take some photos. And I said, sure. She sent me the photos. She emailed me that night. And there were a few of the fire, and I sent them to my friend who I'd done mushrooms with. And he wrote back and said, I dig the face in the fire. And I was like, what face in the fire? Which is amazing because that's the power of the deep psyche, because my conscious mind didn't even see.
Wow.
And when I looked at it, it was the perfect profile in the fire of Pan. A Pan's face, an eye where an eye should be, a nose, a goatee, and a little horn. Oh yeah, I have that photograph. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wow.
So it was like spirit world was like, oh hey, good to see you. Let's play.
And so the mushrooms themselves have a voice.
Oh yes. When I first had the experience, when I was done, I said, this is a portal. This is a portal into the spirit world. I was like, what? And so then I had to go back. I said, I want to go through that portal again. And so I did. And the first 5 or 6 journeys I did were with this friend of mine up in the woods. So we were in the woods at night and we would put this whole area kind of together. And it was absolutely wondrous. And then that's when the owls were coming and I ended up over the course of that year channeling. And
Yes.
and
That's some of the most amazing thing I've ever written. Like the voice that is communicated to you in writing. When you wrote it down, you can tell that it's intelligent, it has a sense of humor, it's poetic, right? And
yes. Yeah. And
profound.
it speaks in rhyme.
Yeah.
And then it comes through me when I'm not on the mushroom at times, but it's not something I can just do instantly. It either comes or it doesn't. And actually, and maybe I will share something with you in this episode, because it hasn't happened on a walk in a couple of years, but now I'm doing 5-mile walk every morning and early in the morning. And on one of my walks, I usually bring a recorder and I listen to lectures and stuff. And I lost, and I misplaced that recorder. And so I had a new one and I just brought the new one with me, empty, didn't have anything. I just thought, well, maybe I'll be inspired and, I'll think of something or whatever. And then a transmission came through. And then the next day I walked 3 days in a row, 3. I have got 3. And the 4th day I brought it and I'm like, and
I'm ready.
and I said a couple lines and it's like, it's either there or it's not.
Yeah.
But this just flows like dictation. I'm not going, what rhymes with, no, I'm not doing that. It just flows. It's so beautiful.
I've been blessed enough to hear one of your recordings that you shared with me privately. And it's clear that you're not thinking what's rhyming. You're not thinking at all. I mean, this is flowing out of you with perfectly formed poems, really. I mean, they are perfectly formed. They're beautiful. They tell a story. They make your heart melt. They give your skin, you get pins and needles just listening to them. I mean, they're incredible transmissions. Absolutely amazing, darling. So will you be actually sharing those as well in your podcast? Well, tell us about your podcast, for goodness sakes. Tell us about it.
Okay, so first of all, I'll preface my podcast by saying I also want to do a podcast with my dear friend Beth, whose property I'm living on. And so that will happen when the time is right. She's a very busy woman. And so in the meantime, I thought, well, why don't I be yet another psychedelic podcaster, just what we need. But it's not going to be like that. So it's called the Mushrooms Apprentice. And so I will speak to both medicinal mushrooms and psychedelic mushrooms, which is all medicine as far as I'm concerned, but also it's the apprentice. So it will cover the subjects that I have been prompted to explore because I've apprenticed myself to the mushrooms. I'm in my 12th year. And so those areas will be natural law, which I've studied for all these years. And that was because of something that happened to me on the mushroom. And what happens is it gives me a clue. It's like it like throws me a bone. And then I'm expected to do the digging, which is really the mark of a good teacher, right? They give you a little, little push, and then you go do the research, and then you get to have the ahas. So natural law, and also the trivium and the logical fallacies, and which is just so important today because oh my God,
That could be the panacea for all that ails us if everybody understood
no question.
that.
Well, no one would tolerate the
Yeah.
Coca-Cola because as soon as someone called them a name or a term, they would inform them, hey, that's an ad hominem, which is Latin
Yeah.
for man. That's a fallacious argument. Do you have a
Yeah.
counterpoint here for me? I mean, are we going to have an intelligent discussion? Because if not, you clearly don't have the intellectual rigor, or even the heart and the manners to just, have a discussion.
Well, even just watching the news, darling, like you can see what strategy they're using. I mean, you can literally sit there and then tick them off as the news
Yeah,
headlines are
right,
on,
right.
and you can just see how there is no substance. It's all this manipulation, utilizing all of these techniques that once you have eyes to see, drop away, just
Yes.
fall off your back like water off a duck's back.
Yes, yes. And so actually, that's another thing I want to talk about on my podcast is discernment. And I'm going to
Mm.
go into propaganda and how to
Mm.
recognize propaganda. And I just got a book. I haven't even cracked it yet, but I heard someone on an interview talking about it who is an expert in propaganda. And I think it's called the Berlin Papers or something. And it was, I think, a journalist who was in Berlin during the Second World War and so Nazi occupation. And he was just keeping notes. Oh, he was taking notes of the propaganda and the way that they would, how they would form it. And he just took copious notes every day, like reading this paper and that paper and this and this. And then he was able to smuggle that out when he left the country. And if he'd been caught, he probably would have been killed. And so there's 2 books on that. So I have not read those yet. So, but that's on my calendar to do because I want to speak to that as well, because knowledge is power. And then that line in the Bible that says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, not because they're not eating right, but our ignorance, right? And so if
Yes.
people don't recognize that they're being played,
Mm.
well, we were just talking about there's a lot of people, sudden adult death syndrome, just out of the blue,
Yeah.
myocarditis in children out of the blue. Things are happening to people because good people have trusted and they just don't know their history, and they're trusting
And like you said, discernment, right? The ability to sniff. Like
direct.
I'm blessed because I came out of advertising, right? So coming out of advertising, you learn how to essentially influence people or manipulate people or compel people to take the action that you want them to do. That was my job. And so I've been able to discern the tricks, right? But a lot of people don't have the training or just the life experience that we do to be able to see it. And I think that's going to be incredibly powerful to be able to share that with people, darling. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will also go into kind of suppressed and quote unquote alternate healing modalities, and we'll talk about
Tell
that.
me about one of those. You just mentioned this
Multi-wave.
Vibratory. Yes, to tell us about that.
Okay. So I really on my show, I will also have guests on my show. There'll be me talking sometimes, and then amazing people who I genuinely admire. Like, I'm not interested in sort of the popular kids or, oh, you have to have such and so. No. I just want people who I just think are just very authentic, right? So there's a man named Aaron Murakami, and he has a company called Vril, VRIL, interesting name.
Wow. Yeah.
And so he has mentored under Eric Dollard, and Eric Dollard is an electrical engineer. He is our modern day Tesla. He's absolutely genius. He's an older man. He's been egregiously abused by the powers that be. So he's lucky to still be alive. And so he's these younger engineer types who, really could see the gem that he is. He was, I think, living out of his car in Vegas. I mean, he really has been abused and has set up kind of laboratories, whatever, with this and this experiment, whatever, and then everything disappeared, like that kind of thing. He's had a really rough go. But anyway, so he has mentored these guys, and they are producing a number of things, but they're producing something called the Likovsky multi-wave oscillator.
Wow.
So George Likovsky was a Russian-born scientist who was in France, and he was experimenting on plants initially, where he would inject them with cancer to create tumors. And then he was putting these copper coils, not like a bracelet like this, but it would be open, right, around them. And so his premise was that, first of all, every cell oscillates. And so it's almost like our cells are like batteries, right? And so in the nucleus is like an oscillating field, and that the DNA is conductive, and it can, receive and send out. So disease, he said, was the result of what was it? Oscillative disequilibrium, I believe. So a disequilibrium, that you've got the cells that oscillate at a certain frequency, and then when something outside is sort of coming at us, different kinds of radiation from the sun, from the earth, this kind of thing, and creates imbalance. And then, of course, diseases also, those disease cells, they're oscillating at different frequencies, and so they're able to overtake the healthy cells. So he was creating these oscillating frequencies around the plant, and within 30 days, all the tumors went away. So then he started experimenting on animals and then on people. And what he created was these huge coils, and they're designed to the golden mean, and they're copper coils. And so there's different sizes of copper coils. So each size oscillates at a particular frequency. And so there's two of them like this on stands. And then you've got this thing that looks like a stereo receiver, and that sort of is behind you. And I think there's I'm not sure if there's a Tesla coil in there, but in any case, it's grounded also into the earth. And what it does is you get this oscillating field that you're bathed in of all these different harmonious frequencies. And so that the cells in the body will then adjust themselves, the different cells, to the correct frequency that our creator intended. And then what that does is now those cells have been all recharged like a battery. And then any disease cells cannot, can't
They
function.
cannot exist within that frequency, right? Wow.
Right. And so what happened was, he was lauded, and there were, he my God, he cured a lot. And so he did leave France before the Nazis came, because he was a staunch anti-Nazi, and he came to this country with his multi-wave oscillator, and they were doing these experiments with extraordinary results. In fact, I think he had like a 98% cure rate in people with end stage cancer, like advanced cancer. So what happened was, coincidentally, he was hit by a car and killed, and under very suspicious circumstances. Yes, what a shock. And so the machine went away, the experiments were dropped, and that was the end of that. And so I think 12 or 13 years ago, one of these things resurfaced in an elder doctor who had died. He had it in a crate or something. So they kind of reverse engineered it and kind of figured it out. Well, there's a guy in this country named Paul Babcock, and he's also an engineer, very brilliant man. And I think he was the first one in this country to actually build one. And he went to Home Depot for all the parts because you can build them. And so he built one because he's, I guess, sort of part of Aaron Murakami and these other guys. They all kind of know each other, right? And there was someone who had cancer. So he was asked, hey, could you maybe try building one of these? Let's see if it can help this guy. And sadly, that guy passed away. But meanwhile, so I've listened to a couple of Bob's talks and, or no, not Paul Babcock. I've listened to a couple of Paul's talks. He was saying that his wife was going in that thing every day for like 15, 20 minutes, just sitting in that, and her gray hair went away. And he said, she's already super energetic, but she was like Energizer Bunny. And then he had to give it away because I guess it was supposed to go to someone else. And she's like, you're making me one of those. So he did. And then meanwhile, so Eric Dollard has also been working on this, and he's modified the coils. And I mean, they're phenomenal. And that man is such a genius. So in any case, I thought, when I sell my house, I'm going to buy one of these. And so they only make a certain number a year. There's no digital, nothing. They're all made by hand. It's a big deal. And these guys really know what they're doing. So again, the company is Vril, V-R-I-L. And there are a number of talks on YouTube that Aaron Murakami has given. Now, by the way, they don't make any claims, nothing. They just say this is for people who just want to run similar experiments to Lukovsky. That's it. Because obviously,
you don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I have a neighbor with advanced Lyme, their daughter who's all of 21. So, I just want to do some of my own experiments with this. And
you want
then
to sit in at 15 minutes every day. That's what you want to do. I'm coming over.
I so wish you could. Well, what I'm thinking is, because I'm almost 60 and my eyesight, which used to be 20/20, is just, shall we say, not 20/20 anymore. And I was thinking, I wonder if this would have an effect on my eyesight. Like, could we improve eyesight with this?
Yeah.
So, and then also one of my retreat clients, who is now a good friend, she also purchased one. So we're both waiting. It takes several months. So I probably won't have mine till, December, hopefully by December. So, but we're going to experiment and compare notes.
Well, actually, I wanted to bring that up because I don't know if people realize that in addition to your podcast, you actually do retreats. And as part of the adventure of your new life, every time I talk to Shonah's life is so amazing. And then it's like, guess what? It's all changing again. And so you've just moved from Vermont to Virginia, and now you're literally in a retreat, right? Where you do retreats. It's kind of like a health community. Well, tell us about the retreats and where you are now.
Okay, well, so I'm in Virginia. I'm not going to say exactly where, but it's very, very, very beautiful. And I was invited to live on a friend's farm, and this woman is a visionary, and she just, oh my goodness. So she's incredible. So she created this beautiful, beautiful space, and purchased, another property, just sort of expanding a little bit. And so I'm on that property in this wonderful 1905 cottage, and that I've been sort of renovating kind of in place of rent, if you will. So, because I'm good at that kind of thing. So that's been fun, and it's very creative, and it's wonderful for my retreats. And so, yes, for the past, I'm in my 8th year now of hosting just individual retreats, one-on-one. They come on a Sunday, they leave Friday morning. It's very deep psycho-spiritual work and deep nurturing. And I am able to kind of read into people's deep psyche, so I can recognize the patterns. I'm an autodidact. I didn't go to school to be a therapist per se, but I worked with superb teachers, including Dr. Brujoy, MD, in my early 40s. And that's what opened me up to Jung and Edinger and Marie-Louise von Franz and all my teachers from the ethers. And I am in awe and wonder of the psyche. And so I get to be witness to this living mystery called this man or woman who comes to work with me. And so yeah, I work with men and women and of all ages and walks of life. And I have been booked solid almost every week. This is my first year where I've really kind of slowed down, although I am booked quite throughout the fall. But in any case, what I want to do, though, I think it's also being in my 12th year of apprenticeship to the mushroom. It's like, okay, I have been sort of midwife to all these beautiful people for these years. And I've lived like a nun, really, and for sure, throughout my 50s. And it's time to, when I was in Vermont, I was in this wonderful cocoon for 3.5 years. And I was away from all the COVID cray. I was up on the northernmost island on Lake Champlain. It was perfect, just wonderful for the time. And I thought I would never leave. And I was thinking, this is my forever home. So I did learn, not only never say never, never say forever. Never say forever, don't do it. And there's that old saying, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right? So
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
got
yeah.
here.
Because
And I'm
you literally just put in one of the things that you did in your home was you built
a
what is
labyrinth, a
a
6
labyrinth.
diameter labyrinth, a beautiful stone labyrinth. Yeah, I put a lot of work into that house. But
Yes.
the people who bought it walk labyrinths. Yes, yes. And the woman was just all about it. Oh my God, they're beautiful people who bought my house. So it's like I stewarded it and then
Yeah,
another steward.
yeah,
And so it worked out perfectly. And I feel like this is a rebirth. And so I also feel like, all right, the retreat's beautiful and it's time to shift and to branch out. And so the podcast is a way really of sharing hopefully some gems for people
yes,
through these years that I have learned, because I work hard and I study and I put it into action. And so I have a lot to share there. And then also people who I admire, who I would love to feature that you haven't necessarily heard of, right? And
yes, yes.
those people on my show. And then also I'm going to work with this multi-wave oscillator. And I've also signed up for a very in-depth course in homeopathy. Not that I want to be a homeopath, but I feel called to learn kind of the basics of that. It's way more than I realized. It's like modules and I had to order 8 books. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even start it till late November when I'm done with retreat clients. But I plan to spend my winter in a lot of study and research, which I like to do. And
All cozy up with books and a fire. It does sound
yes,
lovely.
yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so yes, and this mushroom has just changed my life in the most just exquisite ways, and it's brought amazing people, including yourself, to me.
Thank you,
Really.
darling. But look, one of the things I think, one of the stories that I love the most that you tell is the story about getting your mind right. And again, I put that story in one of my podcasts because it really is such a gorgeous story. But it's also, I think, that if you're able to provide some of the tools and the techniques that you yourself have used to get your mind right, that alone will be the most amazing gift to the planet, because I can see just watching the news, there's a lot of problems with the minds, like the minds, people aren't thinking straight. They're not thinking logically or rationally anymore. And it's a threat to society, civilization, to humanity, really, right? That people's thinking processes have been so I don't know, deteriorated through the schooling system.
Their minds
Yeah.
have been hacked.
Mm.
And this is what it is it's when you mind control someone's mind, now you've got them. They will think how you want them to think. They will act how you want them to act. And these are folks also who understand the human psyche better than the average person does. And instead of course, using that to kind of uplift the people, instead it's used to manipulate and control them. And
One of the saddest conversations I had recently was with a Swiss man who had an Italian accent. So I keep calling him Italian, but he wasn't. He was from this Italian speaking part of Switzerland and he has 5 children. And he said to me that our generation was going to be the last generation of free thinkers because he said, I have 5 children and my job is to pay for them and to house them and to feed them. But my ability to reach them, reach their minds has gone. They are owned by the phone, right?
yeah.
And it was so sad. And I don't have kids, so I don't know. But I don't like if that is true, how on earth do we reach in to their minds and unhack them, deprogram them? Do you have any ideas?
What are those sun things happen when the sun has a
Yeah,
like
EMP.
yeah,
We need an EMP.
that's the first thing that comes to mind, which would be catastrophic. But okay, well, actually, that reminds me of the end of one of the transmissions that I received from the She. They said it will take catastrophe for the sleeping ones to see. But
Yeah.
know that if it comes, that we, the shining ones you call the She, will walk with you eternally. And anyway, yeah, and we will walk with you again on this wondrous earthly plane. So I think we're in the storm, if you will.
Yeah.
And so the way I look at this is, first of all, I can't change that out there. I can't.
Yeah.
I can only do what I can do. I am very grateful that I truly have eyes to see.
Yeah. And ears to hear.
Ears to hear. Yeah, because that's always been just the few who just like, there's a fabulous old photograph from Nazi Germany, and it's this huge crowd, and everyone's like this, and there's one guy, and it was like not a meme, but whatever, he's circled, and it said, be like this guy, and he's like, really? So that's you, that's me. And so therefore I see it almost like kind of the mystery school initiates, sort of as you move through, and then at some point, you leave the mystery school, and then you had a responsibility to conduct yourself in a certain way. And, if it was a good mystery school, not a corrupted one, to help mankind in whatever way, right? So my little tiny piece truly is, I realized, I'm a good communicator and I research and this, right? So I'm good at sharing information, and then these beautiful poems. So yes, those will be a part of almost every podcast, except when I'm interviewing someone. Yeah,
because there's wisdom in there. There's hope. There's hope and there's wisdom, right? And it just, when you are, like you said, I'm hoping, Shana, I'm hoping we're right in the middle, because I don't know. I mean, you watch the news and they're talking about war and nuclear war and food riots and starvation and people freezing to death. And I mean, the plans are pretty nasty, right?
yes.
But if, like, I guess one of the points that I made also on my podcast about you is that because you have your path and you have your vision and you're acting on it, it's kind of like all of this is going on around you, but it's not bolstering you. You know what I mean? It's not battering you, I mean, around,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I didn't come here, first of all, to be a follower. I just didn't. I'm very much an individual, and I think my motto my whole life is, you're not the boss of me. And I also don't fit into a peg. Like I've been like an outlier my whole life, which, as painful as that was when I was young, it has served me very well.
Blessing. Yeah.
And so And also because I see what they're doing, because their key is to demoralize. And so when you can see that, I'm like, all right, first of all, I'm not going down on my knees. That's just not how I'm going. And I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do exactly what you don't want us to do. And I'm going to educate myself, like truly educate myself, right? Like they don't teach us law. They don't want us knowing what our rights are and how to defend them. I'm going to learn that. I'm going to teach others, and I'm going to inspire others. And I'm going to even have a little joy in my life. What a concept. And because also, and I'm not going to feed that shit. In other words, I'm not, well, first of all, I can't even see that thing. It's too small. But like, I just don't get these people who are like addicted to media. And because to me, I'm like, it insults my good mind. Doesn't it insult your good mind? Like, it's bullshit. Like, really, like, it's so obvious. It's just garbage. It's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So this is called a temple for a reason. And so I want to be careful about what I allow into the temple. I want to keep my temple fairly clean.
Yeah.
And also I am seeking wisdom, and that's also what the mushroom has given me. I want to sit curled at the feet of the sages, and so that's where I'm at. And then also because I can see, and I've known this for a while, that, a storm was coming, know my neighbors. And yes, I've moved, and it appears that, well, wait, what was I thinking? I was by the Canadian border. I had my own property. I could grow food, but well, you know what? I can grow food here, and I'm well stocked, and whatever else I need, I have.
Yeah.
And
You have community
I have
there.
community, instant
Yeah.
community. Yeah, including mushroom people. So, which is awesome. Yeah. And they're funny. And they speak, which is great. And so I don't know what to tell you. Like, I trust in my creator.
Yeah.
And so, yep, we're in a storm. Well, guess what? Life or nature works in cycles. And that's everything. And so right now we're in a dark passage. And so it's some kind of, well, you could call it collective initiation, but at the end of the day, it's a dark fucking passage is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, it's cyclical. If you look at the astrology, it's all right there in the astrology. And we've got a big, crazy time coming for us, apparently end of October, beginning of November. They're talking about financial crash. I mean, they're crashing the world.
Yeah.
It's happening, right? So all we can do is what we can do to kind of prepare ourselves. But also, I stress, knowledge is power. So I started this equity law course this year in January with this amazing teacher. It's through yourlaw.org. It's equity law. And it is not, you're not going to be seeing YouTube videos. There's no kind of gurus. This is very, there's just a couple people teaching this. And I found my way to it because I've been seeking for years. This is exactly what I've been looking for, the kind of information I've been looking for. And there's a beautiful quote by the Greek playwright Sophocles that says, "What is sought may be found, but truth unsearched for seldom comes to light." Right. And then the Bible says, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open. You have to ask, you have to seek, you have to knock. You have to, in other words, initiate it. But we're in this extraordinary electromagnetic field. So we have to initiate the charge, if you will, and then it will, in other words, I think of it like I'm in a conversation with the field constantly. But again, this materialist mindset that says, oh, that's nonsense, poo-poo, get back to work. Nothing to see over there, kiddo.
Well, when people actually hear your story from 0 to 60, right? I mean, the speed at which.
Yes.
From the moment you met the mushroom and the way that your life is really reconfigured, in these really powerful ways. It's kind of like I was describing it, it's like a cymatic shift. It's your life goes ka-chunk, and then it's gone ka-chunk, and then just recently it's gone ka-chunk again. And each time it gets even like more and more perfect. It's it's amazingly hopeful. Um, and the way that you're talking about actually having this kind of communication with the field, I think that's the thing that's enabled you to have these incredible cymatic shifts in your life, to recognize it and to communicate with it. Like Chance calls it, oh, I can't even remember what he calls it now. It's too early in the morning for me. But he talks about it as well, that it's imprintable or it's communicable, right? And that, I think, also, like you were saying, faith versus knowing, that when you're actually in dialogue, it gives you a great sense of security, possibly as well, emotionally.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness, yes, yes. And I'm also in a constant state of gratitude. I'm, oh my God. In fact, today, oh my goodness. So when I pull out of my driveway, the road I live on is very windy. And so we have to have a mirror across from the driveway. And it's scary because the road kind of dips, so you can't see cars coming, so you have to look. And I was there waiting to make my turn out of the driveway, and this car came by, and this guy was going, I have never seen anyone go this, and he had a big, huge truck. And he had to be going, I don't know, 60. It was insane. I was about to turn, but another truck came the other way. So I kind of stopped. And that's when that guy went boom in front of me. And I was like, oh my dear God, if
Yeah.
I had pulled forward,
Yeah.
I would be dead.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Wow.
And I mean, that happened to, I totally forgot about that till now, but you want to talk about gratitude. Yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
always saying thank you. And I realize I'm supposed to be here for a while longer. I don't know how much longer. I don't know what's in my contract, but I'm supposed to be here and for a while longer. But yeah, so I don't know, I feel protected. It doesn't mean bad stuff doesn't happen because life is life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I know I'm being impeccably guided. And then, as I told you before we started recording, that I had an astrology reading, and my astrologist said, Shona, if I didn't know, if you hadn't moved, I would have looked at your chart and said, you are moving this year. It's in my chart. Like, it's just amazing. And so I didn't know that, of course, but I responded to this invitation, and it felt right.
And second Saturn return. You go, girl.
Yes, it's a total restructuring, including in friendships. And
Yeah.
that's been very painful. Um, and yeah, and house, and then work. It's all over my work, and that's going to continue all through next year. And then apparently relationship, we shall see. So it's been 10 years. So but again, if that's meant to happen, it's always nice to happen when you're just feeling really good, like
Absolutely.
despite the storm. That's the other thing too. It's like, wow, like shit's hitting the fan on spaceship Earth, and like I might be in a relationship again. Like it is so interesting because you were talking about like Stockholm syndrome, being in Australia. We've been just so barraged. Like, and I don't watch the news, but you don't have to.
No,
Believe me, I know what's going on, right? And so just
you
barrage.
can't escape it.
Yeah, that when you think about something like just love or joy, it's they're sort of making it so that, I don't know, we would think, oh no, that is indulgent, or that's, why would I do that when there's all this suffering and whatnot. And so I don't know, I
Look,
really,
I have to say, like, because when I was in Australia, I didn't even have the mind space to considering things like that, right? It was just surviving and emotionally contending with what you were confronted with in every moment, right? It was
yeah,
so hard. It was basically you had to bear down and push forward to survive. And so the idea I was telling you, when I got to Thailand, I cried joy from just the vibration of not being oppressed like Australia was oppressing me, and so to be able to think of these things is a gift, darling. It really is. And so,
Yeah, because I've noticed years ago, I was like, they're stealing our joy.
yes.
Those fuckers, they are stealing our joy. And so that's another, I don't know, part of my rebellion also.
Yes, is to be joyful.
Well, to have some moments of joy. Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, at the same time, I am obviously really freaking worried, like really concerned. And a teacher long ago told me, 15 years, a long time. She said to me, you are a black-eyed seer. You see the shit. You see the stuff that people don't want to see. You see what they won't see. My medicine is owl. I mean, I can see. And it's very unpleasant. And then not only that, but then I work with people almost every week, these beautiful people for 5 days in my home. And boy, I hear stories that I can't unhear from
Yeah.
people of horrible trauma and whatnot that they have been through in their childhood and this, and we have to, I know this as a medicine woman, hold the beautiful and the terrible and everything in between. And Brew, my teacher, said, when you're doing this work, you don't get to be in preference. Like it's not all airy fairy love, but it's also not all horrible hell either.
Mm,
This is life, and there are cycles, and we
mm.
are, we're in a storm. There's no question, and they're going to amp it up. And
You
yeah.
bought some Schwala. I was reading Schwala
Oh yeah.
talking about that the pharaonic way of thinking is to hold both polarities
Mhm.
and everything in between at the same time. And
I rest
yeah,
my case.
yeah. Pharaonic think,
Wow.
wow, girl, that's amazing.
But
I think it's difficult, I mean, it's difficult. Not an easy. I've been trying to play with that. And it's not necessarily easily because we have these organs of filtration that are our perception organs, and they want to simplify and show you white or black, to hold both of them at the same time requires consciousness.
yes, so I have a transmission to share. So this is from one of my recent walks, and so what I explained to you, this was actually the third one. There were 3 days in a row when these came in, and so it just reminded me also, because I do go in, and certainly when I take the mushroom, I go in and I implore the spirits. I'm like, you guys, we need help. Like, it's a mess down here. Help us, And so I was on my walk, and this just kind of came in, and I was imploring to them, and I said, spirits wise, I ask you, please bring the dark ones to their knees. Wake the people from their slumber, or they will see they're just a number. And then they said, full moon lights what has been hidden. From the shadows, what's forbidden now has voice through those devices. Note the core of that word, vices. This is yet another warning. Many of you will be mourning what's been lost to screen time's call. It encourages the fall of mind from sovereignty's embrace. Gone is wisdom without trace, an overlay of frequencies that ensure you won't be free. Yet like good midwife, nature waits. Align with her to mitigate the sticky web of intern net, whose spell causes you to forget where you come from, what gives you life. It cuts through deceit like a knife. As your ancestors once knew, you must follow nature's cue. Nature's systems don't abuse. In nature, there's no evil ruse. Imperiled are they who ignore her signs. Those who do soon become blind, for false systems lead one astray, stealing cherished rights away. Nature's laws are easily learned. Long has man heeded the turn of starlit wheel that marks the times of darkness or of light sublime. The coming tide calls you away from those devices that hold sway. Instead, attention must be drawn toward taking you from lowly pawn to king or queen on chessboards faced. With that mindset, you will erase the sense of powerlessness you feel. The dark masters want you to kneel before their mighty creations. They want control of every nation. In you dwells the Holy Spirit. Be still and quiet, and you'll hear it. Inner voice speaks without sound, yet most ignore it. They are bound to wrong-held beliefs put in them by clever bards who spew their phlegm. Before the cycle of challenge ends, you'll witness many strong wills bend to march in lockstep with the rest. You've witnessed many fail the test. Only when one's will is strong can one resist urge to belong. Initiations are not easy. They will call you to the floor. It's when our hero's on his knees, he finds the secret hidden door that leads to inspiration's light, that offers ways to tame the night. An inborn navigation tool takes you beyond deception's rule. The hidden genius is now found, whose tools will help to break new ground.
As always, goosebumps, right? Like goosebumps. Wow. I mean, it's a message, isn't it? It's a hard message. It's a hopeful message, but it's also a real. It's real.
Mhm.
Wow, sweetie.
Yeah, we have to get away from this shit.
Yeah.
This is I in my first year of doing mushrooms, there was one night where I did a wee bit and I was talking to my friend who I call Leaf in the book, my mushroom partner, and I was on the phone. And so I had the house to myself and I had this sort of altar, which was a coffee table, and I had a candle lit, I had all the lights off, and I'd propped my phone up and had him on speaker because I never put that thing to my ear ever. And so you know how it turns black. So, and he's talking to me, and actually the beings were reading his mind. It was really a wild evening. But at one point they said to me about the phone, they said, that is a scrying machine. And I was like, oh, whoa, of course. This is sorcery. All of this is sorcery. So this is sorcery, and people are totally entranced. And then they run everything they do, their algorithms, and God knows what frequencies are coming out of that, right? I mean, all of that. And so, yeah, that message is those things need the heave-ho, and we need knowledge, serious knowledge, and also to go within, because this is where the Holy Grail's in here. And so what is this? This pulls us out of here and this, and it takes us into this shit that just like, I mean, obviously this is not shit, not what we're doing, but you know, of course not us. But I mean, obviously this is a tool that's being egregiously abused.
Yes.
And so they know how to suck people in, you know.
It's really odd because I have, some girlfriends that are real anarchists and activists and, like fighting the good fight. And even they, we've had the conversation, what if it's just all you have to do to win this is chuck this? If that's all you have to do, they're like, can't do it.
Really?
Yeah.
I could chuck that thing. The only reason why I even have that, like I need for my client, you know, and my daughters, right?
Yes.
So they make it very like a necessity.
They've made it really compelling, right? It's easy now. And like I've been keeping an eye on it because I'm just curious of, the lengths that they go to. And I cannot do and also because I've just moved, right?
Mhm.
You can't do banking without it. I can't do my marketing without, well, because to get onto my bank now, you
Of
have to
course.
get an SMS, right? All of this two-factor bullshit, right? Like to pay my bills, to give you money, I have to have a phone to pay you money. You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
so insane. And to get on just to all the numerous things that I have to do on a daily basis
Yeah, of course.
because of moving countries and moving phones, it all just became so evident how tied in this device is for no reason. And then you go to a restaurant and they have the audacity to tell me if I want to pay them money for good food that I need to look on my phone. And I tell you what, I get up and I leave because now they're putting the menus on the phone, right? So you go with the Q code and you scan and the menu comes up on your phone, and I'm like, no, I leave.
Mhm.
If they want me to use my phone to order their food, there's no food good enough on the planet for that. Like, it's just crazy. So,
Mm,
yeah, I
yeah.
look, it might be that easy. Maybe that's why it's so hard, darling. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there were helicopters, 2 helicopters going over very low. That's why I like when I was reading, I was like, what's going on? I don't like helicopters. They scare me. Yeah, no,
It was
I
Chance was saying, in America, like, I mean, this is what he says is that, he loved America for so many reasons. And, he had this high paying career and he had all the luxury, but he said, you cannot pay for helicopter free skies.
mm,
There's no,
mhm.
there's not enough money to pay for helicopter free skies. And that's what we had in Australia for a while anyway. So,
Yeah, they're loud. They're loud, loud.
yeah. Oh, darling.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm very excited for my own edification to hear your wonderful wisdom come through on a bi-monthly basis. I believe it might be once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do initially. And then if it's going to be subscribers, so it'll be a 2-hour podcast, the first hour free, the second hour for subscribers. It's $7 a month. And then
Get a
as
coffee for that these days.
that's right. That's right. And then I will probably, I mean, it'd be nice to do them weekly, but I'm going to start twice a month. And yeah, it'll
What's the
be
name of it, darling, so that people can find it?
Mushrooms Apprentice. So the
.com?
website is the mushroomsapprentice.com. And so yeah. And so we're gonna go live, I think second week in October. I have a wonderful woman, Lakshmi Narayan, who runs awake.net, and I'm on their board. And awake.net is wonderful organization. And I like these guys because there's no sort of rock stars, there's no popular in terms of psychedelics, because there's so much ego shit in the psychedelic world. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. And but anyway, these are adults and just a small group. And this is about the spiritual side of entheogens, and also using them for addiction, and particularly ibogaine. Lakshmi has a big place in her heart for that, and she has put together a documentary that they want to grow on ibogaine for addiction. So that's called awake.net. But she also does websites, and so she's doing my website for the podcast because she's super technical and I am not. So
Fantastic. And look, it's funny that you mentioned that. My experience with these ego dissolving medicines, it's amazing that so many of the purveyors, their ego seems to have gone in the opposite direction, right? Like it's egomaniacal people in many cases take on this work. It confounds me. It surprises me. I've run
yeah,
into a few characters along the way. Indeed.
yeah, same. Yeah, it bums me out just
Yeah.
because these are really good and powerful medicines. And but I just see it also as the nature of the time we're in right now. Like everything gets profaned, and people are just they're not at their best. That's a nice way of putting it. So you've got all these people like just hawking, like, yeah, you too can be a psychedelic practitioner or whatever, and for this amount of money, which is going to be very expensive, I'll teach you online. And God knows. It's like just running a chop shop. It's like a factory. It's really actually gross.
Oh,
I
sweetie, talk about being at their best. I mean, you are absolutely the real deal. You walk your talk, and your life is a testament to just, the teachings that you have to share with us. And so I'm absolutely blessed to know you and to be able to talk to you and one day come and see you. And as I said, I'm very excited for this podcast, and that's why I want to let my people know that they have to get onto it.
oh,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Louise. Oh my goodness. Really, I hope we can get you over here soon. I mean, you're staying with me. We will, oh God, well, it'd be so much fun.
I might not ever move out, darling.
Well, taste my cooking. Yeah. Take care.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for talking to us today and telling us all about this new adventure or series of adventures that you're on, darling. And so, guys, please do, when the podcast comes out, I think, can they put their email on your other site? Tell them your other site as well, your normal
So
site.
my website is my name, shonahome.org.
Okay.
And so
They can sign up for newsletter and find
for
out.
I have a newsletter called Wisdom Unfolding. What I'm probably going to do is focus more on the Mushrooms Apprentice, but I'm going to kind of launch the Mushrooms Apprentice through my old newsletter because
Great.
I have, whatever, a few thousand people, like, not, I don't have like a huge newsletter list, but enough that,
Yeah,
people,
it's good to let people know. So
yeah.
Shonagh Home,
Mhm, mhm,
SHONAGHOME.org.
mhm.
Sign up, guys, and get
Well,
the newsletter.
right. That would be Wisdom Unfolding. But then the Mushrooms Apprentice, I have to, and I am going to do a newsletter for that.
Okay,
Time
fantastic,
at
darling.
that, we'll figure out. Yeah, but so
Okay,
that,
or you might put a coming soon page or something, maybe.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And I would like, that can be not,
Website is coming. Well, I
yeah.
know it's going to be.
I
Sorry,
was going to
sweetie.
say, oh, sorry, sweetie. Also, just to say, I'm going to do the first hour, which I said is free. I'll put that on YouTube as well, the first hour. And then I'm also recording some of these poetic transmissions to music and putting those on YouTube. So I'll have a YouTube channel also called The Mushrooms Apprentice.
Fantastic, John. Oh,
Yeah.
it's going to be wonderful. All right, guys, get ready to subscribe to this. It's going to change your world. It's going to rock your world, change your life.
It's like a couple of good gems, hopefully, so we'll see.
All right, my
Right.
loves. Well, thank you so much, Shonagh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shonagh. I've enjoyed the time, and we'll talk again soon.
Well, yeah. Look forward to it.